The Kybalion, a guide to universal laws. 3 people in 1908 published a book that would change thousands of lives. They never revealed who they were. They never sought fame. Yet their teachings have quietly shaped some of the most successful minds of the past century. They called themselves the 3 Initiates, and their book, The Kybalion, claimed to contain the essence of all knowledge, the 7 laws that govern everything in existence. These aren't just philosophical ideas. According to the Kybalion, they're the actual operating system of reality itself. Master these laws, and you master life. What if the most powerful wisdom in history has been hiding on dusty bookshelves all along? What if the secrets to understanding the universe were actually written down, published, and available to anyone brave enough to seek them? The Kybalion appeared mysteriously in 1908. On its cover, 3 initiates. No real names, no faces. No way to track down its authors. Why the secrecy? Because these teachings weren't meant for everyone. Not because they were dangerous, but because they were powerful. For centuries, Hermetic teachings were passed down in secret, student to master, through whispered conversations and coded manuscripts. The Kybalion was the first time these ancient principles were clearly explained in modern language. Many believe one of the authors was William Walker Atkinson, a prolific writer on mind power and occult topics. But he never confirmed or denied this. The mystery was part of the message. The book claimed to transmit the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, the ancient Egyptian sage considered the founder of alchemy, astrology, and magic. The same figure who supposedly wrote the famous words, "As above, so below." But the Kybalion wasn't just repeating ancient wisdom, it was translating it for the modern world. The Kybalion doesn't waste time with complex rituals or mystical nonsense. It gets straight to the point with 7 crystal-clear principles. First is the principle of mentalism. The all is mind, the universe is mental. This might sound strange until you think about it. What is your reality right now? Everything you're experiencing is happening inside your mind. The sounds, the sights, the feelings, all mental processes. The Kybalion takes this further. It suggests the entire universe is essentially mental in nature, a thought in the mind of what it calls the all. Scientists today talk about the observer effect in quantum physics, how particles behave differently when observed. Ancient wisdom, modern confirmation. The second law is the principle of correspondence. As above, so below, as below, so above. This means patterns repeat themselves across all scales of existence. The structure of an atom mirrors a solar system. The way water spirals down a drain resembles the spiral of galaxies. Understanding this principle gives you a superpower, the ability to solve complex problems by finding their simpler parallels. The third principle is vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Modern science confirms this. What appears solid is actually atoms in constant motion. What seems like silence contains sound waves your ears can't detect. Your thoughts and emotions? They're vibrations too, operating at different frequencies. This is why some people instantly click with you while others create tension. You're operating at compatible or conflicting frequencies. The fourth principle is polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Hot and cold are just different degrees of the same thing, temperature. Love and hate are extremes of the same emotion. Good and evil are judgments on the same scale of ethics. This principle shows that apparent opposites are just 2 extremes of the same thing. The practical application? You can transform any negative by moving along the scale towards its positive pole. Turn fear into caution. Transform anger into determination. Shift hatred towards indifference and eventually to love. The fifth principle is rhythm. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. Look around you. Day becomes night, becomes day again. Economies boom, then bust, then recover. Relationships strengthen, then weaken, then renew. Understanding this principle gives you extraordinary foresight. When things are going well, prepare for the inevitable downturn. When struggle comes, take comfort knowing the upswing approaches. The sixth principle is cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. There are no accidents in the universe. Everything happens according to law. This doesn't eliminate chance, it just shows that chance itself operates according to mathematical principles. The most powerful application? Becoming a cause rather than an effect. Most people are tossed and turned by life's events. Masters of the Kybalion position themselves as causes, creating the effects they desire. The final and most mysterious principle is gender. Gender isn't everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. This isn't about biological sex. It's about complementary energies that exist in everything: active and receptive, creative and nurturing, assertive and reflective. In your mind, the masculine energy conceives ideas, while the feminine energy brings them to life. One without the other leaves you either full of plans you never execute or busy with activities that lack direction. The Kybalion teaches that balancing these forces within yourself is key to mastery in any field. These 7 principles might seem simple, but they interlock to create a framework for understanding literally everything in existence. The influence of the Kybalion extends far beyond occult bookstores and spiritual seekers. Napoleon Hill, whose book Think and Grow Rich has sold over 100 million copies, was deeply influenced by these principles. The entire self-help industry, worth billions today, echoes Kybalion principles. Thoughts create reality. Opposites can be transmuted. Rhythm governs life experiences. Even modern cognitive behavioral therapy, the most scientifically validated form of psychological treatment, mirrors the Kybalion's teachings about mental transmutation. Corporate training programs teach mindset and emotional intelligence, repackaged Hermetic principles thousands of years old. The secret isn't in the packaging, but in the principles themselves. They work because they accurately describe how reality operates. The real power of the Kybalion comes from its practical application, what it calls mental transmutation. This is the art of changing your mental states, and by extension, your reality. Sound effect: alchemical transformation. Remember the principle of mentalism? If the universe is mental, and your experience is shaped by your thoughts, then changing your thoughts literally changes your universe. The book gives specific techniques. It teaches polarization, moving your emotions along the spectrum from negative to positive. Feeling angry? Find the positive use of that energy as determination. It teaches neutralization, rising above opposing forces to gain mastery over both. Caught between 2 bad choices? Find the third option that transcends the apparent opposition. These aren't just psychological tricks. According to the Kybalion, they're applications of the actual laws governing reality. The Kybalion describes different planes of existence: the great physical plane, the great mental plane, and the great spiritual plane. Each contains subplanes, and all operate according to the same 7 principles. This explains why physical actions can affect your mental state, and why mental focus can manifest physical results. According to the text, the higher planes always rule the lower ones. Your mental state controls your physical experience more than physical circumstances control your mental state. This is why 2 people can experience the same external event completely differently. Their mental planes are processing according to different patterns. Masters of the Kybalion learn to operate from higher planes, giving them influence over the lower ones. So how can you use these principles today? When facing challenges, apply the principle of polarity. Where is the opportunity hidden in this problem? How can I move along the spectrum toward the positive pole? When feeling stuck in negative patterns, use the principle of rhythm. All things flow and change. Ride the wave rather than fighting it. When working toward goals, leverage the principle of gender. Generate ideas with masculine energy, then nurture and develop them with feminine energy. Some of the world's most successful people apply these principles whether they know it or not. They understand thoughts create reality. They recognize patterns across different domains. They transmute negative emotions into positive action. They work with natural cycles rather than against them. The difference is consciousness. When you apply these principles deliberately, you accelerate your results. But the Kybalion comes with a warning. Knowledge brings responsibility. The book states, "The lips of wisdom are closed, except to the ears of understanding." This isn't about keeping secrets. It's about recognizing that people only benefit from wisdom they're ready to receive. The Kybalion doesn't promise instant manifestation or magical results. It offers something more valuable: understanding of how reality actually works. It teaches that mastery comes through gradual application, not overnight transformation. The greatest power comes not from manipulating external circumstances, but from developing internal mastery. Here's what the Kybalion doesn't explain: why these teachings keep disappearing and reappearing throughout history. Why have some of the world's greatest minds been drawn to these principles only for them to fade back into obscurity? Why do these same ideas keep emerging in different forms across centuries? Perhaps most intriguing of all, what happens when you advance beyond the 7 principles? The Kybalion hints at even deeper laws governing reality, principles so profound they can't be put into words, only experienced directly. Advanced practitioners report experiences that defy conventional explanation, heightened intuition, synchronicities that seem impossible, and direct perception of connections between all things. Is this just self-delusion? Or is consciousness capable of far more than our modern world acknowledges? In our next exploration, we'll examine what happens when people take these principles beyond theory into direct experience, and the scientific evidence suggesting they may be onto something real. What if the universe is more responsive to consciousness than we've been taught to believe? And what if the key to finding out isn't in some distant temple or secret society, but in a book that's been hiding in plain sight for over a century?